And I mean, we've got so much to talk about today. We've got everything from the Oscars over to Joe Biden ends up releasing his latest budget. And at the same time, we still have California trying to figure out whether they're going to give a credit or they're going to give gas cards or they're going to try to lower the gas prices over in this state or how to do it. And, a lot of credit given to Republicans for basically getting the Democrats to that point where even the Democrats are having this discussion now. And so, Mike, I don't know, where do you want to start it off today? You want to start off with this lap? Okay.
Well, I mean, considering our receding hairlines, yeah, it was. It's interesting because obviously the day after, that's what people are talking about, which is kind of sad because there were some incredible breakthroughs. I guess. I mean, I don't go to the movies. I don't watch the movies. But I mean, I know people that do and follow it religiously, and it was a unique in a world full of unique things that often happen. This one was even the most unique, with Will Smith getting up and on live TV going up to another host and slapping him in the face and defending his wife's honor. And it's kind of opened this Pandora's box for some folks that are kind of in the community of well, it shouldn't have happened, he should have been punished, and this looks bad. One black guy getting up hitting another black guy on live TV. You fill in the blank. So it really, I mean, it's kind of funny. In some areas, it's caused a lot of laughter and comedic reaction. It'll be interesting to watch the talk shows in the evening about it. The late night shows. But it's been a heavy topic of conversation today about it, and I just thought it was kind of with everything else that's going on, war in Europe, the president saying one thing, backtracking, saying something else. The history lesson that we got from Kamala on Russia's a big country, Ukraine's a little country, and it surrounds the big country. Plus gas prices in LA are 606 regular price. I just think there's a lot more important things than two egomaniacs going at it on live TV. It was more like Jerry Springer than it was the Oscars, I guess.
One of the things is, you're right. And look, at the beginning part is initially, the Los Angeles Police Department did go to Chris Rock and asked him, whether he wanted to file charges. And so far, he's refused to file charges. The Los Angeles Police Department has indicated that if he changes his mind, that they would be there and obviously take the proper action. But at the same time, at least listening to this morning in radio and seeing a lot of the comments, everyone seems to be giving a pass over to the Fresh Prince for basically defending his wife. Yeah, and defending his wife and slapping Chris Rock. And
right.
the interesting question is, first of all, an hour later he went over he went up on stage to receive the lead, the Best Actor award,
right,
for his the movie of King Richard. And would this have occurred? I mean, would we be having a different discussion if this had been Kanye West that had gone up and slapped someone? Would we be having a different discussion? Or Taylor Swift coming up and slapping Kanye West or someone?
We would have applauded that.
And so is it because of his character, the way Will Smith has carried himself in the past, or kind of a likability that we have with Will Smith and some of his movies that we've society's kind of given him a little pass on this?
I think part of it is what you said a minute ago, which is that, it's not like his wife, wanted to make a fashion statement and shaved her head, or was, shaved her head to play a movie role. I mean, then it probably would have been funny, but she's got a medical condition. I mean, and if you're going to make fun of people that have medical conditions, then, I think you kind of opening yourself up for anything that you get back. And clearly, she when you look at the video, she was. I mean, Will Smith actually laughed a little bit. She did not laugh, and I'm not sure, as it is written in the Book of Husbands, when you notice your wife's not laughing and you're laughing, you damn well better do something, or else you're going to be sleeping on the couch. She was obviously pissed about it, and has a right to be. And so he did what he felt was appropriate. I think it's. I mean, again, and I don't mean to make light of it, but I think it's absolutely hilarious that the Los Angeles Police Department, with everything that's going on in this goddamn city, with all of the problems that we have, with all of the crime that's being committed, has nothing better to do than go to a Hollywood actor and say, do you want to press charges against someone who slapped you? People getting shot in the streets, cars being robbed, in some neighborhoods like here in Pasadena, people have problems with people going in their driveways at night and stealing catalytic converters from their cars. I mean, there's all kinds of crime going on in this city. And that's, but it's a high profile thing, so they want to do something about it. I just find that actually kind of comical.
Yeah, well, the going staying on the comical side, for a very long time, comedians have had a pass on a lot of their stuff that they put out there. They've gotten a pass for a long time, whether it's making jokes on the LGBTQ folks, and we saw this with with the recent comedians,
Dave
that the
Chappelle.
LGBTQ, Dave Chappelle being one,
Yeah.
obviously one of the primary individuals. Like, look, I've made fun of everyone for a long time, and so you've gotten this movement to try to ban or try to curtail some of the comedians. Also other folks who make fun of people because of their race, ethnicity, height, weight, and everything else that comes with it. And so I'll find it interesting to see, are we making kind of a shift here with what happened yesterday, where comedians are going to be a lot more careful as to what they say, or will this also allow for other people who want to come up on stage and
Start
and
whacking
slap
people.
and start slapping the hell out of people? It's
Might
like,
watch the Oscars again if they start doing that. Well, but the thing is, I think it's different because number one, you're saying it face to face to a person. Number two, you almost had the sense that there was some history there between the two, and I'm not sure that there was, and quite frankly, don't give a crap. But I think that was, it was the fact that she was right there. But you're right. I mean, one of my favorite comedians growing up was a guy named Don Rickles, and Don Rickles would make fun of everybody. I mean, there was no one that was off limits, and it was funny. And it's times have changed. I mean, that's the reality of it. The thing that's striking is, though, no pun intended, is the reaction when Will Smith got up and walked up and just like cold cocked the guy, and then started yelling at him, as opposed to yelling at him first, then cold cocking him, I guess. And how people have reacted to that. It's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But the other question is, if someone did that, started making fun of someone you loved and cared about, mother of your kids, what would you do? So I don't know. To me, it's trying. Maybe they're trying to get people to start watching the show again because their ratings have gone down so much. I don't know.
well, I got a funny Don Rickles story. So it was, I was what you go on YouTube and you see like comedians and so forth, and Johnny Carson. He was sitting with Johnny Carson, and Johnny Carson asked him a question. He goes, "Hey, I got a question about you and Frank Sinatra's at this place, eating." He goes, "Oh yeah." He goes, or something like that. Somehow it went to Don Rickles is at the restaurant, and Frank Sinatra is like several tables over, and Don Rickles is with this good looking woman, and he goes over to Frank and goes, "Hey Frank, do me, really help me out if you." When you get a chance, if you came over to my table, just kind of, said hello and stuff like that, it'd really help me out with my date. And he says, yeah, okay, yeah, sure. And so, there's Don Rickles with his date and stuff, and he's eating, food, and here comes Frank Sinatra, walking down. He goes, hey, Don, hey, how's it going? He goes, seriously? What the hell are you doing? You're interrupting me while I'm having dinner here. What the hell's your problem? he goes, and just the shock on Frank's face.
Those were the days. Those were good old days.
He just basically berated him for interrupting him while he's having a meal. When he's the one who asked him to come over. It was great.
Can I tell a story about what this man did to me once? You may have known or heard about this. It was a true story. This is a long time ago, long before Don got married. I was eating dinner in a restaurant in New York, and I was sitting with some friends, and he came over to the table, and he said, "Frank, do me a favor, will you?" He said, "I'm sitting with a very pretty girl, and I'm trying to make out, you know." And he said, "I told her I know you, and she really doesn't believe me. Would you stop by the table?" I said, "All right." I was just about finished. I was down to the espresso. And finally he went back, and I walked by the table, and I said, "How are you, Don? Nice to see you." He said, "Can't you see I'm eating, Frank? What are you doing?" And I went for the whole thing. I stood with my mouth open. He said, "Can't you see I'm trying to make out with this girl?" He said, "What are you doing bothering me?"
You know,
He did.
when I started at John,
He was a great comedian. He really was. And he was the kind of guy, he had anybody that knew him that knew he had a heart full of gold, but, nobody was off limits. And that's kind of what was good about him. It's the modern day version, certainly more creative than it has been, but it's in its 25th year or something, is South Park. It's the same kind of thing. Nobody's off limits in South Park. And there's some good comedy to it. But the thing last night just felt kind of mean, I think is what it was. It wasn't funny, it was mean. Especially considering the situation with Will Smith's wife. So, if someone had done that, I can completely understand his reaction. Yeah. Was it right or wrong? You know what? I'm not going to judge that. I didn't watch it, and we'll see what happens on the next award show that takes place.
Yeah, or at the same time, what happens in the next couple of weeks, and whether Chris Rock and the Fresh Prince end up making up, or figuring some way, because there were moments later where other folks caught it on camera where they were looked like Chris Rock was trying to apologize or so forth, and Denzel Washington ended up getting in between them both, just in case someone's going to rush up onto the stage again. So we'll like you said, we'll see what kind of transpires from there. But it was interesting to see. I didn't see the show, but it was interesting to see. I mean, Twitter and social media was just blowing up with it. Oh
yeah. It's a nice side diversion from people getting bombed and killed in Ukraine for simply being Ukrainians, and all the other problems that are facing the world in this country today.
Well, side diversion from what we're about to talk about next, which is so you got the President of the United States just released his budget for 2023, and so within it, I mean, a summary of it is just he's got a lot of taxes coming in for what he calls the rich.
The ultra rich.
The ultra rich who end up making over, was it $250 million or more, and so there's quite a bit of taxes over for them, and he's got certain places where he wants to put the money. Money he calls it for policing, for community policing. And so, Mike, what do you got on this thing?
Well, we first of all, if you check us out on Facebook, on our Facebook page, we posted literally the president's talking points that we were able to get our hands on. So you can see it for yourself, and you can read it for yourself, and comment if you think it's true or not true. I'd say truth or dare, but there's no dare there. It's do you think it's true or not true? The main things he said is he had the safety and security. He was concerned that this budget addresses fiscal responsibility, safety and security, and building a better and more unified America. And so I guess the first question people should have is, it's now been a year and 2 months. Do you feel more safe and secure at home and abroad? Do you feel, the stature of the United States is such that, in case something happens, we're going to be the strongest force with the, most focused and disciplined to be able to do something about it? You look at what happened in Afghanistan and the military folks that died there, the people, the visuals of people falling off airplanes, American airplanes that were taking off, trying to get out of there while we turned tail and run. Someone said it, I think, very well. All of the billions of dollars in military hardware that we left behind in Afghanistan sure could have been used by the Ukrainians during this conflict with the Russians. Great point. Fiscal responsibility. I mean, are you enjoying in Los Angeles paying $6.06 for gas? I think people are grateful to find it for $6.06 for gas. It's part of the fact that we pay that much money in California is because we want to have clean air. The World Health Organization last week came out a report that said Los Angeles is again number one. Woohoo! We're number one in something in the dirtiest air in the country. So, is that kind of fiscal responsibility taking place? I laughed because he did blame the previous administration, which is standard for all politicians, blame the other guy for the trillions in debt that took place that was passed by Congress and the previous administration, most of which was for development and distribution of vaccines and therapeutics and dealing with COVID and all of the special hospitalizations and all of that kind of stuff. So, I don't think for the most part, these budgets are something you present, and I don't know how it is on the state level. You're more familiar with that. And they don't really go anywhere. I mean, he's got to get this through, a barely Democrat Senate and a Democrat House, and he better do it before he gets to November of 2022, or else it's never going to happen. But it was just an interesting version of history, or an interesting version of reality that they present. And it's the kind of thing you look at as a PR person, and you read the talking points. And one of the key things is, does it pass the straight face test? Can someone who is saying that on television, does it pass the straight face test? And I've been there before. I mean, I remember one TV show I did in Rhode Island when I was the party chairman, and they were talking about, believe it or not, the Brazilian rainforest. And someone says, well, you Republicans, you're always against the environment, and I was arguing that you don't have to have both. And someone says, well, your Republican senator is in the Brazilian rainforest. What do you think of that? And I had my set of talking points about it, and all I could look to, and I'm looking at him like, there's no way this is going to work. I just looked at him and said, well, I hope he has an umbrella because it rains there. I had nothing else. I mean, I knew I couldn't use the talking points and keep a straight face about it. And that's the same thing with this. I mean, you look and, does it pass the straight face test? Because, people are going to pay attention to that now because of what it's costing them. And I don't think it will. I don't think it will.
One the other question becomes is, okay, so you take this money away from, well, a couple things. First of all, it's what's in the rest of the pages, because a budget here in California is hundreds of pages long. Sometimes it goes about 300 and some pages. Now, can you imagine how many pages are in the federal budget?
Mm-hmm.
This is going to go into the thousands. And so the important thing is, where do all the footnotes take you? I mean, are we giving $200 million to go study, this one little creature, procreating with this other creature, and what comes from it? Or do we, because we read about all these headlines later on, and do we end up funding one airport that only has, like, I remember a while back is one airport who only had every single day had like 5 or 6 customers to that little airport, but it was because
one of them was probably a congressman.
Yes, it was. It was one of them was the actual legislator who was taking that airport to go to D.C. And so you read all these different details. I mean, and even on the state side, we're giving hundreds of millions of. I mean, what was it? I think it was like $250,000 to create a dog park. There was something like $50,000 or $70,000 for a sculpture for this other park. And we ask ourselves, is okay. Just because we may have the money doesn't necessarily mean you've got to spend it that way.
Right.
Or, there's so many other things that we can spend it in. And the question that becomes, if we're going out and spending like we ended up, I forgot the exact amount, but something like $250,000 or more than that to help fund a museum so that Cheech Marin can have a place to showcase his personal collection of artwork.
Wow.
You know,
Because he
and
can't
what
afford to have a museum himself.
I, and yeah, I know. The question becomes: is this the right use of money? And is the government just taking so much money that it's basically seems like they've just got to find things to spend the money on.
Spend money on. Well, they have to find things to spend money on that everybody will vote for. So I got something, you got something, they got
Right.
something, and that's really how they get these numbers worked up. And he likes to talk about taxing the uber rich, and no one likes to pay taxes. It doesn't matter if you're on the low end of the totem pole or the high end of the totem pole. No one likes to pay taxes, especially this time of year. But the reality is, the government should set priorities, and that's one of the things they really, I think, over the last year have failed on. I mean, the cost of living is up higher than it's been in 40 years. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's a fact. It has been. The price of gas is through the roof long before Ukraine and Russia happened. You
But
know,
but I think that's where I think these budgets and these discussions need to go. It's like, okay, what is the money that we're going to spend or the infrastructure we're going to build so that we become more energy independent, so that we figure out ways to produce our own oil. So and look, if we're going to go to a movement where we're going to go electric, okay, so where are we going to be in building the electrical grid to make sure that we can actually have the capacity by which to deal with all these new electric vehicles or everything else that people can put in their homes to be more energy efficient. At the same time, what are the things we need to do so that an average person can go out there and buy a electric vehicle without having to pay $60,000 or $70,000 for a Tesla?
more.
What, or yeah, or more. I mean, that's just a
They
base
just
model.
raised the price. They just raised the price within the
Huh?
last within the last week. I think they raised it 10 or 15%.
Well, and what do we do in order to allow these individuals? I mean, and there's got to be a program. And the idea of having everyone just go all electric just seems absurd. There are a lot of folks that are driving 70s, 80s, and 90s cars. How do we get those individuals into a 2000 model car that may not be electric, but is going to be more energy efficient or more,
Right.
you can get you more miles with less gas. And then you end up, getting the next tier, after so many years, you get that next tier into a 2010 type vehicles and then 2020 vehicles that are more energy efficient. But it just becomes sometimes an all or nothing kind of proposal. And it's like, just, if you don't like this war, if you don't like this invasion of Ukraine, just go buy an electric vehicle.
Right.
Well, not everyone can go ahead and do that. I mean, people,
If
as you
you're
said, are feeling the hurt of not just gas prices, but also they're feeling the hurt of food prices. And now you've got the dock workers that are looking to strike
go
here.
strong strike, right?
The dock workers are looking to strike. And so what do you think is going to happen to the prices of goods there? At the same time, we're dealing with not just the goods coming there, but we depend on everyone else making things that we end up putting in our vehicles, into our computers and all the chips and everything else.
It's it's the height of arrogance and the height of lack of common sense to say to someone who is hurting because the gas price went from 450 to 606 to say, well, your solution is to go buy an electric car. I mean, if they could afford to buy an electric car, they would do so. They wouldn't be hurt by the fact that your price per gallon went from $4 to 606. Again, part of the thing to understand, and we refuse to do this, is that the 606 is not because of the petroleum manufacturers. It's not because of the Ukraine. The next state closest to us in price is Hawaii at like 484 or 494. There's a huge difference, and that difference is what we pay in extra taxes in California. Not just a gas tax, state gas tax, which is what the governor's talking about doing with the $400, which, frankly, is kind of an insult. And not just the 18 cents a gallon that the feds do with all the states. It's all the extras that we pay for the additives, the special blends of gasoline.
The high-speed rail, we pay for the high-speed
all
rails in there.
All of those kinds of things that are in that extra money that we pay that makes us at 606 and the next state at 484. And the part, and I'll go back and I mentioned it a second ago, that really we should be asking the question is, when the World Health Organization comes out and says, once again, Los Angeles has got the worst air quality of any city in the country of the United States, you have to ask yourself, it's not doing any good. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you can have all these blends and everything else, but if it's not reducing or improving the air quality, why are we paying extra for something that doesn't work? And the reality is it doesn't work because there's other external factors other than, the engines. There's wildfires and things like that. So we're paying extra for something that doesn't work. That's problem number one. Problem number two is there's this arrogance that says go buy an electric car. Well, I'd love to go buy an electric car, but Tesla literally just raised their prices within the last 2 weeks. Why? Because they can. It's a market. It's a free market. That's what they're able to do. So they're able to do that. Makes it even more unaffordable for people. And then they come up with the solution, which, by the way, is not just Gavin Newsom. All the Democrat governors around the country are doing this. Their solution on the gas prices is to send money back. Well, why is that? Well, because if you send money back, then you're the ones that are giving money back to the people. It's all part of this you depend on me syndrome that they have. As opposed to saying we're going to cut the price, but only for gas stations that bring the price down. So that there's no misunderstanding that if you cut the price, let's say from $6 and you take out the 53 cents for the California gas tax, which is what it is. Forget all the other blend and all that other stuff. That's about another 70 cents. Take the 53 cents, subtract it from the $6, and that's what your price of a gallon of gas is going to be. And you require that those stations that get that break are not able to raise the price so that they grab any of that 53 cents. You can do that. And now everybody is properly benefited by this, as opposed to, just writing a check for $400 and sending it to people. I mean, when you look at it, and you're paying 606 as an average. A lot of places, I was traveling, where was I? In Orange County last week. I mean, it's like 657. There's our favorite place down in LA, across from Union Station. 3 weeks ago, I mean, even before the Ukraine thing, it was like at 60 something. Now it's at 787 or 789. It's like the money, the benefit should go to the people, and it should be consistent, because the money that they say that the taxes bring in for infrastructure, one of the reasons we have such a deficit is because last year they passed an infrastructure bill that California got, I think, another $27.5 billion. And they can't finish a railroad. So, what is that money used? Not what is it used for? We have to stop asking the question, what is the money used for? We have to start asking the question, what benefit came from this money? Right. Not what it was used for, but what benefit. If we're paying 80 cents a gallon more for blended gasoline and all these other environmentally safe measures, that's wonderful. If we're no longer the number one city in the country with the most polluted air.
Right.
But as long as we are, you should be asking the question, what good does this do? That's the question, not what are they doing, what good does this do?
Well, and to kind of keep on that subject with the with gasoline prices here in California, so there are a lot of different proposals. There's a proposal by the governor to give $400 per registered vehicle with a maximum of 2 vehicles, and that would go to each individual, obviously, that's got a registered vehicle. So if in your household you've got 3, you'd only get it for 2. That kind of takes, his idea is he takes care of people who have fleet vehicles and all that other stuff. The Democrats also want to, then you've got the Democratic legislation or Democratic leaders that want to kind of not give as much money because under Gavin Newsom's plan, that would cost about $9 billion. The Democratic leadership is looking at something that would cost about $5 billion or so. Now, let us first remember that California currently has a surplus of about $45 billion. That means it's got a ton of money there from people who obviously paying their taxes, from a lot of businesses that are paying their taxes, from individuals that have sold their stocks that get charged at a higher price, people who've sold their homes that were investment properties, having to pay higher prices. And so the state right now currently has $45 billion sitting in this pot. So Gavin's plan is about $9 billion. The other Democratic leaders want to do something at about $4 to $5 billion. Republicans are constantly saying, "Hey, reduce the 53 cents, the 51 to 53 cents in taxes we're paying it. Reduce that down, eliminate that, and that would be a good start over for them." And so there's the interesting dynamic with this whole thing is, and I give credit over to Gallagher and a bunch of the other Republicans who basically have said, who've put the Democrats in a position where now they're looking to give a rebate, or they're looking to kind of have a discussion on lowering gas prices because they're looking at their poll numbers and it's hurting them. As Californians are hurting right now, it's hurting them. I mean, I read this interesting story a while back about these super commuters. These are individuals who can't afford to live in where the place of work is. So let's take Los Angeles for example. Can't live to live in downtown Los Angeles or nearby there. So they've moved. Several years ago they moved to Palmdale, Lancaster area. They moved to the Inland Empire, which is on a good day may take you an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 15 minutes to get into work. But these are people who, because of the cost of housing was less expensive where they moved, now they're feeling the pain at the pump, and it's hurting them even more.
They're having to pay to go to work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's in essence what it comes down to, is they're paying to go to work. And you're right. I mean, because of the price of housing, the places they could afford were outside of their commuting area. There is some place, we don't have the kind of mass transit they have back east, but that what you just described happens a lot down in the Washington, D.C. area. You have people that'll live an hour and 15 minutes south in like Fredericksburg, Virginia, that commute to D.C. and they take they call it the Virginia Railway Express, which is a train that goes up. They'll take a bus to the train, and so they have these ridiculously super commutes, but it saves them a ton of money. And they literally, that song "Living for the Weekend," that's what they're doing. They're living for the weekend. And I congratulate the Republicans of getting some of these Democrats' feet to the fire. It really is a question again of, we have to stop asking, is this good? Is it making a difference? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that I just don't see. When I saw that report from WHO, not a conservative organization by any stretch of the imagination, and they say Los Angeles has, the dirtiest air in the country. It's like, if you're doing all of these things and it works, and so the air you're breathing is healthier and better quality for not only you, for people with asthma or chronic, problems and things like that, that's one thing. You're getting a benefit for the investment that you're making. But right now what's happening is we're at 606, and that's LA. You look around LA, it's even higher. The next state is 484. That's a huge difference. There shouldn't be that kind of huge difference between the two. And, part of it is state taxes and all these other added fees. If these added fees aren't doing you any good, now's a good time to, put a sunset or a moratorium or something on them. And on the taxes, like you said, $45 billion is a heck of a lot of money. With this administration, they can curry a lot of favor with $45 billion, whether it's with the unions or the corrections or whoever that they like to play with. They can curry a lot of favor with that. They don't need more. And, they would be smart to take a look at it and say, they can't do anything about energy production necessarily, but they sure can do something about the price people pay at the pump.
Well, they
There's
can
no
do
doubt
energy.
about
Well, they can do a lot with energy production here in California.
that. Well, I mean,
Right now, you've got in the governor's office, you've got 1,000 permits that are sitting there to have these oil companies go out and well, they did it before. We've had these wells here in California. We're a huge producer of energy, of oil, and the governor over the last couple of years with Jerry Brown and now Gavin Newsom have just whittled all that down. So now we depend on bringing oil from other countries into California and paying billions of dollars a day to have all that oil in here. But I think the other, surprising area that you look at with this budget, that you look at with the gas prices, is really you got now in Sacramento. You've got unions that are teachers unions that are now protesting. They've been out of work for 4 or 5 days now, and one of their main reasons is because of the cost of living has gone up so high, because inflation's gone up so high that their paychecks aren't able to cover for these teachers the cost of living. And I look around, it's like, buddies, the people you elected into office is causing a lot of this problem. And so now you want to use more taxpayer money to increase, teachers get paid with taxpayer money to increase your salary when the very same people you got in office created this problem.
Right. You
And are
created the
perpetuating
monster
this
that's
problem.
biting you.
Right.
I want to talk about energy for a second because this is a conversation I had with my wife yesterday. Yesterday was a beautiful day. We did the laundry, and instead of using the dryer, she hung some stuff outside to dry off and stuff. And as I was traveling last week, I heard this commercial. I forget which energy company. It was one of the major energy companies in California, was doing this commercial about why people should not use their dryers to save energy, because the point in time when they usually use their dryers during the day is when there's the greatest amount of energy drain. So do your laundry and then hang your clothes outside to have the nature basically dry your clothes for you. And it was hilarious because where I grew up in Providence, Rhode Island, that's in Silver Lake, that's what my mom did. We lived on a second floor of a tenement house. She'd do the laundry. She'd walk down 2 flights of stairs with the laundry basket, and she had a clothesline in the backyard.
Yeah.
We didn't have a dryer. And I just laughed because I was like, what we used to do 40, 50 years ago, because we had to, is now what an energy company is saying we should do because we don't have enough energy.
Right.
And that's messed up. I don't know how else to put it. But that's messed up. I wanted to slap the radio. I was so pissed off. That's messed up. I just think, we're the 5th largest economy, yada, 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 fill in the blank of superlatives about California. And here's a major energy company saying, go use the air outside in the sunshine to dry your clothes, the way you did 40, 50 years ago. And by the way, don't tell anybody that when you get your clothes back, they may be a little sooty or whatever because the air quality in Los Angeles sucks. It's just, forget common sense. I don't know where we are with common sense anymore. But it was just messed up. I was just like, it was one of those things that really hit home because I remember, my mom lugging a basket of laundry downstairs and, with the clothespins and everything else hanging up outside. And now they're saying, well, this is what you should do again because we want to conserve energy. This is where we've come in 50 years.
Who has clotheslines now? Even in apartment complexes, I've got friends that live in those, and there's no clotheslines around.
No.
What do you hang it on? Chairs that you got maybe lawn chairs that you have outside?
Well, I thought we'd hang it on the fence, but then.
No, but it's one of those things.
Right.
But everyone, go buy a Tesla. Everyone, if you're upset about this, go buy something that you're gonna have to plug into your house.
Right.
With
the cost of energy in California per kilowatt hour being what it is compared to every other state in the country.
Right.
I think there's only like 2 or 3 states that have higher kilowatt hours cost than California. That's one of the reasons a lot of companies leave California is because they can go someplace else, and the money that they save on their electric bills, helps them go, recover from the move that they had to make. So and that's if you could find enough electricity to do it. It's
absurdity of it.
it's a wonderful dreamland that they live in, and you know, I think what we should do for the campaigns is just hire Will Smith to go out and slap people in the face that come up with these stupid ideas.
Maybe we should. Oh man. Well, we'll see. We'll see all that. We'll find out what happens with this gas proposal, because we've got the governor who's probably going to end up releasing a couple more things in the next couple of weeks, along with the other legislative leaders on both sides, to see how they deal with it in California. But you know, we've got a couple more days, and we'll see what the reaction is over to the president's budget, calling in for what he called billionaires' taxes. But really, I think the important thing is you know, as we go into the next couple of days, people will start peeling out some of that budget to find out what else is in there, because I mean that becomes the true test, is really what's in there.
That's happening as we speak, because he put it out. He put it out today, and there were think tanks in D.C. That's what they do. They go through it with a fine tooth comb, look for the things that are the special gifts or things that make absolutely no sense. And my guess is probably in 2 or 3 days we'll start reading stories about that.
Yeah.
So,
well, and one of the things I want to talk about next time around, because I just pulled out some research here. You know, the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association is looking to put together some sort of proposal or proposition to try to get rid of California's death tax. And so, you know, I'd love to kind of hit that next time around. It's like, it's this idea that, you know, you work so hard throughout your life to try to leave something over to your kids, and yet once again the government comes in and wants to tax that bad boy into it. So
you got to get a piece even when you're gone.
Yeah, it's like you've already paid for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we'll talk. We'll maybe touch on
beast.
that. Yeah, I know. Got to feed the beast. So $45 billion apparently the surplus isn't enough.
No, it's tough times out there, man. Tough times.
And that's the thing. It's tough times for everyone except for the government.
Right, because the government has your money.
Yeah, I want more of it. But Mike, it's great getting together with you. We'll get together a little bit sooner rather than later, as I know we took a little hiatus there.
Well, that's okay. And you know, just to remind people, you know, on the international front, the Hector and Mike experience just wants to remind you that Russia is a big country and Ukraine is a little country, and Russia attacked Ukraine, which is not good. It's not good. So I've just given you foreign policy courtesy of the Vice President of the United States. I'm glad both of them are now back in the United States, the President and the Vice President, as opposed to showing how smart the American people are. It was not a good week for our foreign policy. Let's put it that way.
It was not.
No.
All right, Mike, talk to you later.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.